welcome guys and girls. I'm going to try to give you a quick rundown of my tips and tricks for installing invisiFRAME. There's one good tips and trick video out there, and I'll go ahead and link that in the description. But for the most part, there just aren't a lot of videos or some sort of instructional ones. I'm going to just try to tell you what I learned from the process. It is quite a pain. It definitely took me a long time. I'm pretty meticulous. There are a few things that bothered me about it. I was actually on the fence about midway through the process and considered like removing everything I had put on there and just giving up on it. But I continued, I put it on. I'm gonna show you kind of what worked for me, places where I went wrong, maybe help you do a good job if you're doing it for the first time and haven't experienced this before. So I'm gonna start by just showing you some overall tips and tricks that I've written down here. And then I will show you kind of the layout for the shop and how I set it up and used it. And then we'll take a look at the bike frame, and then I'll also show you the fork because I did the new Fox 36 as well. Okay, so I'm just gonna run down the list here on some tips and tricks. I've taken these from kind of all over the internet as well as from just learnings from my use. So the first one, gloss equals slick, and that is referring to the fact that a gloss frame is going to be slipperier than a matte frame. When you go to put the invisiFRAME on there, you're putting the bubbles, you're putting the soapy water on, so you can use less soap in your mix. It calls for like I think it was 2.5 milliliters into 350 mil of water, and I ended up adding another 100 milliliters of water to that mix, and that was about right. You'll see here in a second that my bike was half gloss, half matte, and that seemed to work fine all over it. You can always just spray more soapy water on there if it starts drying out too quickly. And then the dark equals marbling is just because you're gonna see a lot of the imperfections in a dark frame, and so I kind of had the worst of both worlds, having a completely black and glossy frame. Don't freak out, the marbling will basically go away as that the little bit dries up there. The heat lamp piece, a lot of people recommended using like a heat lamp, a blow dryer, or your hands. I've underlined hands because that's the way I went. I did use a blow dryer in the beginning, and then I honestly just found it was unnecessary. When you're shaping these, if you just keep kind of rubbing your hand over it and over it and over it, and sometimes holding and putting some heat on there, it will end up forming, even in the beginning where it seems like there's no way this plastic is going to hold down to that kind of shape. It will eventually hold down. The soapy water starts to dry out, the adhesive starts to stick, and the heat helps to kind of shape it onto there. The light piece, the more light you can get, the better. And you'll see in a second here that I had a lot of light when I was using it. It made it very warm in here, which actually probably helped because of the heat for shaping. And then a nice tip, and one that I kind of had forgotten about and didn't use much, is to use a headlamp or a flashlight. From the side you can see the bubbles, and that will help you make sure you're getting all the bubbles out. And speaking of bubbles, the next one about the squeegee is really important. I found that you want to like start in the middle and make a ton of light strokes with lots of repetition, working your way out towards the edges. It's really easy to not see that there's a little bit of water or a bubble underneath there. I had to pop 2 of them. I'll show you that in a second here. So the more repetition you can do, the better. Make sure to spray the soapy water on top so you can get smooth sliding using your hands or the squeegee. And then some people recommended using a rag to capture the water as it comes out of the edge. Otherwise that water can pop back under and sort of slow the adhesion down. I tried it, but I kept getting little pieces of lint in the edge, so I gave up on it. I would just run it to the edge and then just streak the water off and let it evaporate on the bike and just keep doing that. So if you can get a really nice lint-free cloth, I'm sure that would work fine. And then for cleaning the bike, use an isopropyl mix of 50-50. You can use just isopro, but I found it easier to just have it in a separate spray bottle, and then I could spray it. As you go is referring to doing each piece as you go. Don't do the whole bike and then just assume you're good, because you're going to end up getting like fingerprints or something on it. and you want to make sure you don't have any dust or hair or anything like that that's settled on it, so it's better to do piece by piece. Speaking of hair, I avoided fingerprints. I ended up using gloves. So you can use just your hands, and then you would want to spray them a lot with soapy water every time you go to do it to prevent applying fingerprints to the invisiFRAME. But I preferred to use gloves, and it worked really well. I didn't have any problem picking them up or rubbing or anything like that. And then really watch out for hair, and I'll show you a little more about that in a couple of the problems that I had. And then as far as the template order, that's the template they provide you that tells you, it has some instructions on the order that they recommend going. I would recommend starting small and marking them off as you go, and be careful. The errors is because my template actually had errors. There was a spot where it called one thing left and the other one the right, and it turned out that those were the opposite. I think it was part of the down tube, and I could not figure out like how the shape would possibly work, and then it ended up being because they had it completely wrong. Left was right and right was left. So that's what I've got for tips and tricks. Feel free to add yours down below. I'm gonna go ahead and give us a quick look at the shop, and then we'll look at the bike. All right, so here's the overall setup. I was using these two halogens, which put out a ton of heat and really good light. And then I set up the bench over here to basically be kind of like the workstation. I did use the stool a little bit, but for the most part, I had to just kind of stand and work it because you need to be like right on top of what you're working on. So what I would do is I was wearing gloves, as I said, and I would basically find the piece that I needed, right? And that would be using the template here. And the instructions are pretty useful too, and the template does have some, it kind of recommends an order that you go in, which worked pretty well for the most part. I was originally spraying my hands with the soapy water solution, spraying the gloves, and then drying them. I would not do this. I actually realized that I was probably putting a little bit of hair onto my fingertips. I spotted hair at one point, and I've noticed that a couple of the hairs that I have are in the corners of pieces, which is like where I would be peeling it up. So I would not recommend doing that. Just maybe even take a little bit of like a bucket with some soapy water, and that way you can dip in there, and that would get the hair off really nicely. And then I was cleaning beforehand with a rag with the 50-50 water and isopropyl mix. This is just to remind me that it's the right one, because occasionally I would grab the wrong one and be using this when I thought it was soapy water. This is the squeegee, which you're definitely going to want to use. Super nice. Don't use anything too rough, or you can stretch the plastic out or be putting marks in it. When I was using it regularly, I would just kind of fold that over, sometimes set this on top, and then that would just prevent the isopropyl from drying out as quickly and making my air pretty stinky in here. And then these were some tools that I used just to kind of like fix problems. So you'll see in one place I had to make a couple cuts, and I would use the tweezers to like help with removing like a piece of hair or something if I found it. I did try to use some Tech Armor dust removal tape from phone screen covers, but it really didn't work that well. It seemed like it was leaving a little bit of a residue. So as far as the bike goes, it was super nice having the frame completely untouched. The shock got in the way for a couple little pieces, but for the most part, everything was really nice and clean that way. One of the reasons I was hesitant about this kit is because this bike, let me kick on some light here, it is half gloss, half matte. So from basically this point down, this is all matte. And now it's gloss, because obviously I had to decide between a gloss kit and a matte kit. So I went gloss, and it basically turned my bike into a gloss finish now with, you know, you can see where the gaps are and stuff. So no, it's not so invisi when you do it this way, but at least it is protected. And as you're looking at it, you can see like a lot of pieces fit together really closely. This one was just insanely close, and I'll show you on the other side. I actually had to make a cut. And then I did have to pop a couple bubbles. You can see like, I think it was right here, and there was one other one back here, and they actually came out pretty well. Like I just did a really, really tiny pinhole and then popped them. I found hair in a couple places that's sort of driving me nuts, but it'll probably be just fine in the end, but you can see there's a hair totally embedded underneath this, like I said, right in the corner. And unfortunately, even right here by the nice Ibis logo, might not be able to see it, but there are a few minor imperfections up in the top there. Little hair, I think, right here. And then let's see if we can spin this around and take a look at the backside. So I have no idea what this is. Didn't notice it while it happened at all, and came out the next day because I did this over a 2-day period, morning and night, and that was in there. So I honestly don't know what that is, but that kind of drives me a little bit crazy. And then you see if I can show you here. So I actually had to do some cutting. So there, you can kind of see the difference between the two and how I kind of gouged that up. I had to cut in 2 places. This was my first cut, and I did not use the tweezers to hold the tape. So I would recommend, if you have to do any cutting, use a tweezers to hold it out a little and then cut with a really sharp edge along the line so you can make it more of a straight line. The reason I had to do that was because when I put the top tube on here, I didn't come far enough forward. So it would be nice if the instructions told you to like have like a 3 mil gap here. I had more like a 5 or something. And what I did was I was lining it up down here at the bottom with this piece because these two were already on here. And that made me set it too far back. And because I set it too far back, that meant this part was too far back. So then when I went to put this on, I had overlap in the back. And so that's why the other side was super tight. So anyway, the kit comes with a ton of stuff. I mean, every little piece is basically covered. The only 2 places that I felt like they should have probably done and didn't were back here. So you can see I actually put 2 matte patches that I had in here. But this bridge between the chainstay and the seat stay, I don't really understand why there's not a piece provided for that. And then they also provided nothing here on the back of the lower seat tube. So I only had a gloss patch that I could throw in there. That one may not be all that necessary because you're going to get most of your rocks coming down this way. And they did provide a protective patch here and there, and then a really nice one here. This one was, let's see if I can show you here. This one was super hard to shape because it comes down, wraps around, covers this, which is actually another piece in here, and that's the only spot where there was intentional overlap, and they laid that out on the kit. So that's it for the frame, and then I'm going to show you real quickly the fork. What I did was the fork, and I was a little concerned that it was going to come out too glossy. I know people commented on the frame skin one being a little closer to the original matte on the Fox forks, and that's definitely true. Like if you look at the top here, you can see that the matte finish on invisiFRAME has a bit more gloss to it than what comes standard. So this kit involves the 2 top pieces as well as the wraparound for the top, and that wraps most of the way around it. You can see that you'll always get some ghosting around the stickers. I actually kind of like the finish having a little bit of gloss to it. I think it looks nice. It'll probably match my bike better since it's going to be really shiny. And again, you can see ghosting here. The only place that worries me a little bit is like, I'm wondering if dirt's gonna make its way in around the edges here. And I had to be really careful down below here that I had sealed the bottom. Like I had to keep coming back and pressing this down, because if this was wide open down here, then I know it's just gonna completely fill with dust up in there. So now it is sealed. There's nowhere that it can get in on that side. That being said, if we take a look at the other side, where this is the new 2019, so it's the Grip 2, and you can see it doesn't cover it all the way. So right here and right here, despite the fact that this is sealed at the bottom, dirt's probably going to make its way in there. So we'll just see how that goes. But by this point, I had really kind of like refined my my methods, and so I didn't have any air bubbles, no hair in here. Everything went really smooth as far as the fork goes. I was originally going to do the cranks as well. I have the kit for them, and I did do the cranks on another bike that didn't have anything, but the cranks came with, you can see it runs from here up to here, and it's really heavy duty. It's like definitely a thicker cover than the invisiFRAME. So I'm gonna leave that for now. We'll see how it goes. If I start getting any rub down here, then maybe I'll try and apply invisiFRAME over this. I'm hoping to not have to take that off. So for now, I'm done. I'm not doing any more invisiFRAME. I've had enough for a little while. All right, so that's what I've got. I hope the tips and tricks helped you out, and that if you decide to throw some invisiFRAME on your bike or one of your parts, that you'll be able to have some success with it. In the end, for me, I'm still sort of on the fence. I think I would probably do it again if I had the choice, but it would be nice if I could have had like a half gloss, half matte finish, because I think that did look cool on the bike. It'll be nice to have it protected. It takes a lot of work. You just have to be patient. It's going to take you many hours. Like there's no way you're going to be able to rush it and do it right. Even working slowly, it's, as you saw, I still had minor issues pop up, and you just kind of have to work around them. So hope that helps you guys out. Feel free to leave any comments down below, and good luck to you.